Experience hospitality the Northwest way at the Everglades Hotel. Located on the banks of the River Foyle, the Everglades Hotel is just minutes from the centre of Derry, Londonderry, with free on-site guest car parking. Whether you're here for a family meal, a big celebration, or simply a peaceful retreat, we'll make your experience as memorable as the sights in the city. Visit Everglades Hotel Derry for accommodation bookings, the latest menus, live shows and events, and much, much more. See you there.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Gaelic Lives podcast. It's our review show once again on a Monday morning, and we're looking back at all the action across the counties in Ulster from last weekend. We're going to touch with Donegal here first this morning. We've ran Ferry from the Donegal News on, and ran the group stages are all done in Donegal. It's knockout football from here on in.
Yeah. So in the senior and intermediate, we were playing the group phase there, where every team had 4 games, 2 at home, 2 away. So that's all done now, and it's on to the knockout business. So we've been, it's been an interesting enough couple of weeks. The senior championships look quite even, but it's just hard to judge if you're getting a true gauge on where teams are at. So I would say from next weekend onwards, in the knockout, I'd say we'll be seeing teams with everybody that they can put out onto the field, and it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out from there on.
And the four teams through to the quarterfinals ran with Gweedore, Dunlo, Kilcar, and St Michael's. They were the top four teams in the group stages, so they're straight through. And then there's another 8 teams have to play off in the Premier League quarterfinals.
Yeah. So that's the way it plays out. Fifth against 12th then. So St Eunice just missed out on the top four, and they'll have to play Termon now, who actually they played on Saturday evening. And the funny quirk that they've come up against each other, and it was an interesting weekend. Usually they play all the 8 games at the same time, and they didn't do that this week. They kind of put the teams towards the lower end on the Saturday evening, and the teams to the top end on the Sunday. But the Unions probably were the one team outside of that, and they ended up missing out on the top four then. Whereas perhaps if they played on Sunday and seen that the likes of Kilcar were racking up a big score, maybe that would have urged them on a wee bit more. And their win against Termon, and Termon were fighting to stay out of the relegation playoffs as well, so there was plenty on the line for them. But I think maybe all the games should have been on the same time, and maybe would have just been a wee bit fairer all around.
Just looking at the big results, I suppose, from the weekend, ran one of the standout ones. I suppose St Michael's beating Glanties was a big one, 218 to 117. Is that much of a surprise? I suppose from the outside looking in, it seems to be.
Yeah, I think it's been Niamh Connell haven't quite hit their top form at all yet. They lost to Glen Swilly, they lost against St Michael's yesterday. They were quite fortunate to beat Ardra. They were under pressure in that game, and against Downlands last week they were under a lot of pressure. But came through in an impressive style after playing for 14 men, and against a gale force breeze in the second half. Now, in fairness, I did interview Martin Regan after the match, and he did say that with Niamh Connell's score difference, it was highly unlikely that they were going to make the top four. So did that play into their thinking a wee bit? Was there Jerry McLaughlin was at the game for us. He reckoned that maybe they had an eye on what was to come down the line. So yeah, but it's been Niamh Connell just haven't quite got into their full flow yet. I suppose Kieran Thompson's a huge loss for them. He's out with a partial ACL tear. He had surgery there 2 weeks ago, so he's not going to play in this championship. And he's been their clutch man down through the years. He's their most important player, and they're getting the grips. Trying to play without him now. They're Kieran Gallagher's back from Canada and he's playing really well. Owen McGettigan's back in the team now, but it's Niamh Connell. You wouldn't rule them out. But it's still a surprise that they've lost 2 of their first 4 games.
Talking about missing men, I suppose Michael Murphy, I don't think we've seen him in this championship so far, Ran, and Glen Swilly lost out to Kilcar at 420 to 110 at the weekend, so we haven't seen him yet. Is he gonna be about at all in this championship, or I suppose everybody's waiting to see what happens?
That's a $64,000 question. And I think there's all kinds of reports that he won't play, or maybe he'll be back for when it really matters. So we don't know. Like, we'll just have to wait and see. He had a tough season with Donegal. And Glen Swilly are certainly missing him now. There was again a lot of talk that Patrick McBurty wasn't going to play for Kilcar, and he did play and played quite well yesterday for Kilcar against Glen Swilly. So, still a little surprising, maybe the manner of that victory. Now, Kilcar are usually hard to beat in Towney, and there was a big breeze, but they were very good against the breeze as well. I suppose Kilcar, a lot of strong runners, with the likes of Ryan McHugh, Ryan McShane, Andrew McLean's back in there this year, Matthew McLean. So they're quite good against the breeze as well. And but I'd say Glen Swilly would be disappointed with the final outcome in that game. When they're under a bit of pressure now, they're going to be playing Four Masters next week, and that's going to be a tough game for them.
Four Masters seem to be one of these clubs, Ryan, that we're waiting on in the next couple of years, just for their underage structure and the young players they have coming through. But what are they like at the minute? Four Masters.
Yeah, like Four Masters are they're going well. Like, they were in the quarterfinals last year, and they were only beat by 3 points, I think, by Guidor. And they had already beaten Guidor, but they have a lot of young players. Barry Dunion's taken in, and you know they've probably replaced some of their older men with teenagers. And like, these teenagers are quality, like Conor McCahill and Turtle Carr and that. But that bit of experience, deal the extra years of S&C, like, it's going to take these younger players by the time they get up to that level. And I think I counted one day they were maybe playing 6 or 7, maybe 8 players that were 20 or under. So that's going to have an impact on your team in general. But they've a lot of pace. They have a lot of confidence. These young players, they're used to winning. They're used to taking on players. So now they were caught yesterday against Dunlow. They were 2 points up, and Sean McGee got a late 2-pointer to draw it. But that was still a good result, going down to Ross's Park against a Dunlow team that people think are going well. So the one real blip that they had, I suppose, was they lost to Termon at the Burn Road. And like, Termon were the Division 1 league champions, but they didn't have a great championship. But they were really on it that day against Four Masters, and Four Masters scored 3 goals and still couldn't win the game. So probably with young players, maybe you'll get a bit of inconsistency, but they've definitely got a lot of pace, and the likes of Conor McCahill, he knows where the goals are.
Not that result against Dunlow. I think it was the first point that Dunlow dropped in the championship. They won the first 3 games, and then they drew at the weekend against Kilcar. They seem to be a team that have made massive strides over the last few years, Ryan. I think, was it last year they were in the county final?
Yeah, they definitely have. Yeah, they reached the county final last year. Were beaten by St Eunan's, but they had a good run, and they've become accustomed to winning championship matches at this stage. They're probably a bit stronger than last year as well. Luke Clerkin from Donegal, who's with the Donegal under-20s the last couple of years, he's had a bad run of injuries, but he's playing now and playing well. Ryan Green's back from Australia, so that's a big help as well. They Carr McGee, who was on the extended Donegal panel this year. He missed a couple of games, but he was back in yesterday. So, yeah, they're strong defence, good conditioning. What people would say, have they enough firepower up front? But it's not been holding them back so far.
We were straight through to the quarterfinals with 4 wins from 4. Ran there, the informed team in the county, and I think they just got through at the weekend by a point. Was it 15 points to 2-7?
Yeah, so I think it was just 2 in the end up. Like, it was a funny kind of game. Like, the first half was kind of played at a bit of a pedestrian pace. McCool's had a bit of a breeze, and they probably sat a wee bit deep, and Guidor were happy to keep the ball when they had it. And without maybe really going that far. And I think it was maybe 6-3 to McCool's at half time, and then Guidor got a great start. And then Rory Callahan, be a cornerback for McCool's, ended up scoring 2 goals. He was on the edge of the square twice, and managed to flick the net. And then Ethan Harkin got a 2-pointer, put Guidor back in front. McCool's were looking for a leveler against the breeze, but crucially, Austin Gallen hobbled off injured in the last couple of minutes, which will be a very big worry for McCool, especially ahead of the preliminary quarter final next week. And then Dolan McGillivray got the insurance point. So yeah, they're going well. Guido probably haven't, they had a good one against the Knolls, who were struggling, but probably, they've had to come through tough games, even against Glenfin and against Airua, who've ended up in the relegation playoffs. But they seemed very happy to be in the top four. I think that was a big target for them to avoid the preliminary quarterfinals this year. Ethan Harkins going well, Michael Rorty's going well, Darryl Wheels back in the team now. So yeah, they're going well. The younger players are pushing on. They're a wee bit older, stronger now. So I think they look at this championship and think, why not? Why can't we go all the way?
Just looking at the preliminary quarterfinals you'd mentioned, Ran, so it's St Unions against Termon, Sean McCool's against Downings, Four Masters against Clinswilly, and Neve Connell against Killybegs. So what's the standout tie there? Who's the big ones to look out for in the preliminary quarterfinals?
Well, I think for me, probably Four Masters and Glen Swilly is a really good game. It's a repeat of the under-21 final last year. So they're two very young teams going at each other, and it should be a decent game. St Eunan's Termon, both clubs quite close to me here, and it could be a nice tie. They drew in the league, and then there was 3 points in it last week. Now, St Eunice didn't play Niall O'Donnell. Will he be back for a knockout game? We'll have to wait and see. I think it was big for Termon to get through to the preliminary quarterfinals. They've been making steady progress. I think it would have been a bit of a blow to that momentum had they ended up in the relegation playoffs. They haven't got much to lose this week. I think people are going to be expecting St Eunan's to win. But Termon have a young, athletic team. I think they can get stuck into it. St Eunan's, they're the reigning champions. They've got a lot of good players. Hasn't quite clicked yet. But you've got Shane O'Donnell, you've got Kieran Moore in there. You've Sean Patton in nets, obviously. Owen McGeehan is a goal machine up front, and Conor Donald Jr. is an accurate shooter as well. So, I think they've used something like 25 players over 4 games, which is a lot, Sean. They gave their county players a couple of weeks off when they came back after the All Ireland final. So I think they'll be ramping things up from now. So yeah, that'll be a game. McCool's against Downings. You would expect McCool's to win if Austin Gallen is playing. If Austin Gallen's not playing, that makes things quite interesting. McCool's have a lot of pace, a lot of energy, but Downings are going well. They failed to beat the Knolls at the weekend, but Cian McBride, the Meath player, wasn't about for that match. So if he's back next week, that could be interesting. And Killybegs are another team going well. I watched their game with Airua back on the stream yesterday. Hugh McFadden, real handful in it, full forward, scored 2-4. Owen Ban going well at centre half back, and then you have the likes of Jack McSharry, Christy Mulligan, and Evan Broderick chipping in with scores as well. So, Killybegs were at the preliminary quarterfinals last year, didn't get through to the last 8. I'm sure it's a big target to get through the last 8, but, Neve Connell will probably still be fancy to take that one.
Rand, just before I let you go, one more question for you. Who's going to win the Donegal Senior Championship?
It's a really, really hard one to call. I suppose you're changing your mind. I think I said to somebody yesterday, Dunlow. But then I was watching Kilcar on the stream today, and I was looking and thinking if they could get Owen McHugh back in this team, they'd be hard to beat. Guido as well. Then you've St Eunan's. So definitely hard one to call. I have a wee bit of a feeling for Dunlow. So I don't know. I could be left with a lot of egg on my face, but yeah, at the minute I'll stick on that one.
We'll be back in a couple of weeks, Ryan. We'll get you on and see how right you were once the Donegal Championship's finished. Great to hear from you, Ryan. Thanks very much for coming on. That's our Donegal roundup sorted. We're going to take a short break now. We're going to hear from our sponsors, and then Niall Gardlin will be on, and me and him is going to look through the rest of the championships throughout the province. So, Ryan, great to hear from you. Thanks very much for coming on.
Thank you, Sean.
Experience hospitality the Northwest way at the Everglades Hotel. Located on the banks of the River Foyle, The Everglades Hotel is just minutes from the centre of Derry, London Derry, with free on-site guest car parking. Whether you're here for a family meal, a big celebration, or simply a peaceful retreat, will make your experience as memorable as the sights in the city. Visit Everglades Hotel Derry for accommodation bookings, the latest menus, live shows and events, and much, much more. See you there.
So looking back at the rest of the weekend's action, we'll just start with Armagh because there was only one game in the senior championship in Armagh at the weekend, and that was the final round of the group stages. Armagh are into the playoff stages now, and there's 4 teams into the quarterfinals, and there's 8 teams playing off in the playoffs this weekend. But Cullyhanna, they topped Group B. They beat Mullabone 116 to 113. It was a win that sees them go straight through to the quarterfinals for the second year in a row. They topped the group. Aidan Nugent, I suppose, was the big story here. He scored 110 of a 116. He was really impressive in the second half because Cullyhanna trailed at half time. They were 7 points down. Mullabone got off to a flying start. Ryan Kelly netted inside the first 3 minutes, and they were 195 up at half time. But Cullyhanna fought back with Nugent and Jason Duffy really coming to the fore, and the pair of them shared 114 between them. So it was a big win for Cullyhanna, and for Mullabone, they're still in it. They're in the preliminary quarterfinal next weekend, and they take on Clevie, which would be a big local derby. So that's going to be an interesting one. Just on the rest of the preliminary quarterfinals, it's Clevie against Mullabone, St Peter's against Cullevill, Carrickduppin against Greenmore, and Madden against Armagh Harps. So a couple of big clashes coming up this weekend in Armagh. Moving on now, we'll go to Fermanagh. I think there's a few big results here.
Yeah, yeah, Sean. I suppose the big story emerging from the weekend is that the Lisnaskey sprung a big surprise against Enniskillen Gales. So Enniskillen Gales have basically been knocked out of the championship running. They face a relegation playoff. I don't think anyone would have foreseen that at the outset of the campaign. They would have had Enniskillen as one of the big favourites for the title, obviously. But yeah, Enniskillen got a late goal from Brandon Horn, but it wasn't enough in the end up. And fair play to Lisnaskey, that's a big one. And there hasn't been that many shocks in Fermanagh in recent years, and that's probably up there with any of them usually, you know. And go through the rest of them, Sean, as well, while we're at it. Yeah, Donegal Harps have was another big contender, but they're having the opposite experience. They're 2 from 2, you know, so they're tucking along right through. They've got to win away to Ballinalack at the weekend, and then in Group B, Edern have been going well. They drew against Erin Gales in their first day out, and they got a win at the weekend over Keymore. So that was a good result for them. Keymore had a good season, so I wouldn't demean what they've achieved so far in the championship. They've been going very well. Keymore, maybe the standout personal performance. Omar Manor scored 2-9, but it wasn't enough for them. In the final game, reigning champions Erin Gales had to settle for a draw against Connolly. Connolly had the better start, and they led at the break with 4 points. And you're thinking there's an upset in the cards here, but Erin Gales come back into it, and they end up 115 apiece, you know. So Erin Gales have 2 draws to their name, you know. So the reigning champions, they're not out of it by any means, you know, but they've probably had a somewhat mixed start to the campaign, you would say.
Yeah, and in Down, I suppose the big news in Down this weekend was the fact that Mayo Bridge exited the championship. They were in round 2B, having lost their first round, and in round 2B, it's the second chance, but of course, if you lose, you're out. So they lost to Downpatrick. Downpatrick were 414 to 115 winners, and Ronan Murphy, Tom McNeil, Conor O'Grady, and Morgan Fitzpatrick all got the goals for Downpatrick, which is a huge win for them, but it sees Mayo Bridge crash out of the championship. Just through the rest of round 2B, then Ballyholden beat Saul by 1 point, not 17 to 113. That was decided late in the game when Seamus Lahern hit a huge 2 point free from 55 metres to see Ballyholden through to the next round. Breda and Leitrim had to go to extra time, with Breda just coming through. Breda, the league Division 2 league champions, of course. They won 314 to 215 after extra time, while Castlewellan, again, 1 point was the difference here. They beat Bransford, not 17 to to 113. In Division 2, Round 2 A, this was the winners' pot then. It looks like Carryduff and Byrne are very much still the main contenders for Kilcoo's crown. Carryduff, huge winners over Glen, which this was probably billed as one of the games of the weekend. The two teams that both reached semi-finals last year and both lost out to Kilcoo and Byrne respectively. But Glen have been going well. They got promoted this year. They reached back-to-back senior championship semi-finals in the last 2 years. So a huge win for Carryduff. Ronan Beattie, John McGill and Tom McCarr all scored the goals here, and it's just a statement of intent really for Finn and Moriarty's side. Same with Byrne, huge win over Loughlin Island, not 23 to 112 in the end, and that was a Byrne side without Liam Kerr, Paddy Burns, and Danny McGill. And Danny McGill is obviously going to be out for the remainder of the campaign with his cruciate. So again, another big win for Byrne, and Carryduff and Byrne, just the two teams at the minute looking likely to challenge Kilcoo, who play tonight. They take on Clonduff in the final round of round 2. They play in Park Asler at 7:15 on Monday night. So obviously we can't discuss that game with no result coming through. But yeah, a few big results in Down, and a few teams putting their season on the line next week as well, once the losers group and the draw is done after tonight's game. So now I think we're into the quarterfinal stage of the Cavan Championship. It's the same as Donegal. The group stages is over.
Yeah, it was the final round there at the weekend, and the four quarterfinals have been determined because it's based on the final rankings in the group stages. So I'll wrap through the quarterfinal pairs first of all. It would probably do no harm. Crushlot are playing Arva, Downer are playing Cavan Gales, Kingsport are playing Ballyhees, and finally Mullahoran are playing Rammer. So that was all determined by more or less by the way things panned out at the weekend. Crushlot finished top of the table despite only drawing against Kingsport, who have been going really well themselves. Crushlot led by 6 points, but they ended up needing the Paddy Lynch free just to get a draw out of it. Killygarry lost the Derby duel to Cavan Gales by 7 points. So lost Cavan Gales through the quarters. Played well the last couple of games, Cavan Gales. So maybe they're dark horses. You never know. Mullahoran's impressive form continued with a good win over Ballyhees, quite a high scoring affair, and both those teams end up advancing. There's a similar story between Downey and Rammer, two teams we know a lot about. Downey won and both progressed to the quarters. Arva have been going rightly. It was only 3 years ago they won All Ireland Intermediate Championship, and they're going well at senior level. They were full value for their 6-point win over Castlerawn, and they're through to the last 8. And then finally, there was a really good game at the bottom of the table between Ballina and Laura United. Ballina came from 13 points down. They clinched that one, but the end up was fairly immaterial. Go for a set for playoffs now, Sean.
Monaghan, there's a few teams through the knockout stages in a scheme are sure of top spot in Group 2 before the final round. They beat Lawton at the weekend 113 to 012. This was a top of the table clash as well, with Enniskeane coming through by 4 points. Sean Jones, he hit the goal, which was the determined outcome in the end. So that was a huge win for Enniskeane. Maher Clune got a huge win over Ballybay as well. They won 216 to 111, and that means that everybody has a chance really of survival on a Mullen play. Maher Clune at the weekend, and Ballybay play Lawton, so it could be possible that Maher Clune, Ballybay, and Mullen all finish on 2 points. So that'll leave it tasty to see who finishes inside the top half of the table. Group 1 then, the big results for Clontibbert on Scottstown. Clontibbert beat Truro 224 to 217, while Scottstown beat Cromartin 618 to 310. Huge win there for Scottstown. Scottstown and Clontibbert seem to be the two main teams at the minute, and Enniskeane obviously going to have something to say about that, as well as Carduff, who play Scottstown in the final round this weekend, while Cromartin hosts Clontibbert. So a lot to play for in Monaghan and a lot to play for throughout the rest of the counties. And now I know we're coming into the knockout stages, and I think the Tyrone Championship's just around the corner as well. So it's coming to the right time in terms of the championship. This is the be all and end all of everybody's season.
Yeah, no, you're right, Sean. I suppose I paid particularly close attention to Throne, and there's been intermediate and junior matches over the last couple of weekends, and it has been very exciting. There was a particularly good clash between English and Thailand in the intermediate championship last Thursday, and the senior championship kicks into gear in the coming days, really, and it starts on Thursday night with a meeting of reigning champions Errigal and Burbo, and then the remaining 7 senior matches are played over the weekend as well, so in Tyrone, like the rest of the province and the rest of the country, it's all systems go.
Everybody always looks forward to the start of the Tyrone Championship, and it's probably the best championship in the country. So we'll be discussing all the results on next Monday's show. We'll be back on Thursday. We'll have another podcast for everyone on Thursday, and we'll continue our Thursday and Monday podcast as usual. So thanks to Ryan Ferry for coming on earlier. Thanks to Niall for giving us his roundup throughout the counties, and thanks for everybody for tuning in. We'll chat to everybody now on Thursday.
Thanks, Sean.